He's got the best volleys in 25 years. Unbelievable. And people are trying to copy him. You watch, like Sinner, these other guys. It's going to be okay.
Jannik Sinner was supposed to be preparing for another major battle. Instead, he was spotted entering JMedical in Turin for further examinations on his injured right knee. That unexpected appearance delivers the shocking update now surrounding the Italian star. A tennis expert reveals why the visit deserves serious attention. His US Open withdrawal had already shown that the knee was not ready for five-set tennis. With Sinner now receiving additional checks at the JMedical Clinic in Turin, uncertainty over his recovery timeline has deepened. The examination results, however, remain private. One unanswered question now controls Sinner's entire season. How much longer will the knee keep him away from competition? His team must decide whether an Asian swing return is realistic after reviewing his progress. Rankings and outside pressure cannot accelerate recovery. A wrong decision now carries consequences far beyond one missed tournament. Subscribe for every confirmed development and tell us whether Sinner should return this season or focus completely on recovery. The immediate task is no longer proving that Sinner can tolerate a short practice session. His medical staff must determine whether the right knee can survive the repeated loading produced by professional tennis. That includes sudden stops, wide defensive slides, sharp changes of direction, and explosive pushes from low positions. A player can look comfortable during controlled training and still struggle once match intensity removes every protection. JMedical offers the equipment and specialist support needed to examine that difference. The clinic's findings should help his team decide how quickly rehabilitation can progress. Until that process is complete, any public return date would carry more hope than certainty. Sinner's withdrawal from the US Open provided the clearest public measure of the problem. A Grand Slam represents the kind of event leading players rarely surrender without a serious reason. It offers major ranking points, historic value, and one of the largest stages in tennis. Sinner had already invested time in treatment and attempted to rebuild his fitness before making his decision. His knee still failed to reach the required standard. That choice protected him from entering a best-of-5 tournament without confidence in his movement. It also confirmed that the issue had moved beyond a minor complaint that could disappear after several quiet days away from competition. The new examinations in Turin therefore serve a practical purpose. Doctors need to compare current information with previous scans, physical tests, and the symptoms reported during training. Medical imaging can show structural changes, but it does not answer every question about competitive readiness. Strength measurements, stability checks, movement tests, and the player's response after exercise also matter. Sinner's team must combine those details before increasing his workload. The goal is not simply to remove pain while he rests. Recovery must allow him to run, break, rotate, and strike under pressure without producing another reaction inside the knee. That standard is far tougher than completing an ordinary gym session. His playing style makes that standard especially important. Sinner creates power through clean timing, controlled balance, and forceful movement into the ball. His baseline game depends on reaching the correct position early enough to take time away from opponents. When his legs are working properly, he can redirect pace without appearing rushed. A troubled knee changes that entire system. Even a small loss of trust can make a player hesitate before planting the foot or chasing a wide ball. That delay affects contact point, court position, and shot selection. The damage then spreads into parts of the game that seem unrelated to the original injury, including serve rhythm and decision-making. This explains why a return cannot be judged through a few clips filmed on a practice court. Training footage usually shows selected moments. It rarely reveals how the body reacted later that evening or the following morning. Medical teams pay close attention to that delayed response because swelling, stiffness, or renewed discomfort can appear after the session ends. Sinner may complete a drill successfully and still require additional recovery before repeating it. The clinic visit gives his specialists another opportunity to assess that pattern. A positive test would represent progress, but clearance for competition requires consistent evidence across several demanding sessions, not one encouraging morning with a racket. The surface waiting later in the season adds another layer to the decision. Hard courts provide predictable footing, yet they can place considerable stress on the lower body during long matches. Sinner's possible return during the Asian swing would likely involve fast conditions and opponents prepared to test his movement immediately. Nobody in the draw would treat his first match as rehabilitation. Rivals would use drop shots, sharp angles, and repeated changes of direction to discover whether the knee remained vulnerable. Sinner must be ready for that examination before he enters an event. Medical clearance without sufficient match fitness would leave him exposed to a different problem: his body being healthy enough to play, but unprepared for elite competition. There is also a difference between protecting the injury and restoring the complete athlete. Reduced court time can affect endurance, timing, and confidence. Sinner has already missed important competitive opportunities while recovering. If the absence continues, his team will need to rebuild several physical qualities without overloading the knee. Fitness work cannot simply resume at its former level. Each increase must be monitored. Court sessions need the same control. Serving, returning, lateral movement, and point construction place different demands on the body. The medical information from Turin should guide that progression, allowing coaches to increase difficulty only when his knee handles the previous stage without a harmful response. Ranking pressure will remain in the background. Sinner's position near the top of men's tennis depends on results collected across a rolling 12-month period. Missing major tournaments removes chances to add points while rivals continue competing. Carlos Alcaraz and the other leading players do not need to influence Sinner's medical decision directly. Their results create pressure automatically. Every deep run changes the numbers. However, chasing points before the knee is prepared would be a poor exchange. Rankings can be recovered through strong performances after a healthy return. A worsened injury can remove months from a career. Sinner's team understands that distinction, even when the competitive cost becomes uncomfortable. The public still lacks the medical detail required to label the exact severity of the problem. A visit to a specialist clinic confirms further assessment, not surgery, permanent damage, or the end of a season. Those conclusions require evidence that has not been released. Responsible analysis must stay within that boundary. Sinner has a right to keep personal health information private. Fans naturally want answers because his absence changes major tournaments. But curiosity does not create a diagnosis. The strongest confirmed picture remains straightforward. His right knee prevented him from preparing adequately for the US Open, and further checks were performed as specialists continued evaluating his recovery and planning what should happen next. That limited information still carries weight. Sinner has built his success through preparation, discipline, and remarkable consistency from the baseline. His team would not ignore the consequences of another withdrawal, especially after a season filled with major expectations. Returning to JMedical shows that they are seeking detailed medical guidance instead of relying on public optimism. The visit also indicates that recovery remains an active process. Treatment has not simply ended with instructions to rest at home. Specialists are watching how the knee changes, how Sinner responds to rehabilitation, and whether the next stage is safe. That approach is sensible, although it does not guarantee the quick answer supporters want. The next meaningful update should concern function rather than appearance. Photos of Sinner entering or leaving a clinic reveal where he received care. They do not show how the joint performs under load. A stronger sign would be his return to sustained tennis training with normal movement and no reported reaction afterward. Match preparation would then need to become more specific. Practice sets, repeated serving, defensive drills, and recovery between sessions would offer better clues about readiness. Even then, his team might choose a smaller event or additional training before committing to a major target. The schedule should follow the knee's progress because reversing that order would turn competition into an unnecessary medical gamble. Sinner's communication has already shown disappointment rather than panic. Missing the US Open hurts because he has enjoyed major success in New York and understands what the tournament means to his career. Yet withdrawal also demonstrated restraint. Elite athletes are conditioned to compete through discomfort, particularly when a major title is available. That mentality produces famous victories, but it can also encourage damaging decisions. Sinner chose not to test an uncertain knee across 5-set matches. The clinic visit continues the same cautious path. It shifts attention away from what he wanted to play and toward what his body can safely handle. That is not weakness. It is professional risk management during a difficult period. Any eventual comeback will require mental trust as well. Physical tests can confirm strength and stability, but Sinner must believe the knee will support him during instinctive movement. Tennis offers no time for conscious protection once a rally accelerates. A player cannot pause before every split step and calculate whether the next push is safe. Doubt produces guarded movement, and guarded movement can place extra stress elsewhere in the body. Rehabilitation therefore needs to restore confidence alongside physical capacity. Controlled drills provide the first stage. Competitive exercises add pressure. Full practice sets expose hesitation. Only after those layers are completed can Sinner enter a tournament knowing that attention belongs on tactics rather than the condition of his knee. His coaching staff will play a central role once doctors permit greater activity. They must design sessions that reveal enough information without creating excessive strain. Early work can focus on controlled hitting and efficient positioning. Later drills can reproduce the movements opponents are certain to demand. The team must also judge how his game changes after time away. Sinner's ball striking often returns quickly because his technique is compact, but competitive timing cannot be stored indefinitely. Serving under scoreboard pressure feels different from serving in practice. Defending breakpoints challenges the legs differently from completing a planned drill. A careful comeback must prepare him for those realities before tournament results become the measure of his health. The Asian swing remains an attractive target because it offers important events and enough time for further rehabilitation. Attraction does not equal confirmation. Entry lists can change and a player can withdraw if medical progress slows. Sinner's team should resist turning any tournament into a deadline that controls treatment. A target can motivate rehabilitation, but it becomes dangerous when every decision is bent around reaching one date. The better approach is to establish physical benchmarks. Pain levels, movement quality, strength balance, and recovery after demanding sessions can determine whether participation becomes realistic. If those standards are met, the schedule opens. If the knee continues reacting, another withdrawal becomes the responsible outcome, regardless of ranking points or public anticipation. Questions about the rest of the season will become louder if Sinner does not resume full practice soon. Indoor events and the ATP Finals carry special importance for a player who has performed brilliantly in fast conditions. Turin also holds emotional value because Italian fans have turned his matches there into national sporting occasions. Still, the familiar location should not tempt him into forcing a return. Playing before a home crowd brings energy, but it also increases pressure to continue when the body sends warnings. His medical team must separate the emotional appeal of those events from the evidence produced during rehabilitation. A healthy Sinner can contend for every major prize. A restricted version risks losing matches while extending the problem. Long-term planning matters because knee injuries can influence the entire movement chain. When an athlete protects one area, the opposite leg, hips, back, or ankle can absorb more work. That compensation does not always cause immediate pain. It can develop quietly as the player changes movement patterns. Specialists will therefore examine more than the place where Sinner feels discomfort. Strength symmetry and movement quality can reveal whether his body is distributing force normally. Correcting those issues may require extra time, even after the original symptoms improve. This is another reason the public should avoid treating a pain-free training clip as final proof. Sustainable recovery depends on how the complete system functions during repeated high-intensity work. The visit to JMedical also highlights the level of support available to modern elite players. Sinner can access advanced imaging, sports physicians, rehabilitation equipment, and a team that understands the demands of professional competition. Those resources improve decision-making, but medicine still cannot promise an exact recovery date for every injury. Bodies respond at different speeds. Progress can arrive steadily before a difficult session produces a temporary setback. That does not always mean treatment has failed. Rehabilitation often requires adjustments based on new information. The Turin examinations give his team another set of data for making those adjustments. Their responsibility is to interpret it carefully, communicate honestly with Sinner, and prevent competitive urgency from overruling medical judgment. Fans should also remember that silence between updates is not evidence of disaster. Players often release information only when a tournament decision has been made or a clear stage of recovery has been reached. Daily medical commentary would create confusion because symptoms and workloads can change. Sinner's team may prefer to work privately until they know whether the next block of training succeeds. That choice can frustrate supporters, particularly when photographs from a clinic circulate without explanation. However, limited communication protects the player from having every rehabilitation step turned into a public promise. The next official announcement will matter more if it describes a firm decision rather than offering a hopeful timeline that needs to be withdrawn days later. For now, the strongest conclusion is measured but serious. Sinner's knee problem has already cost him the US Open and required further specialist attention in Turin. Those facts justify concern. They do not justify invented claims about surgery, irreversible damage, or a secret retirement plan. His immediate future depends on the examination results, his response to treatment, and the quality of his movement as training becomes more demanding. Every stage must be passed without forcing the next one. The competitive calendar will continue moving, and rivals will collect opportunities during his absence. That pressure is real. Yet the decision that best protects Sinner's career is the one based on medical evidence rather than the fear of falling behind. When he finally returns, the first result will not answer every question. A straight sets victory could hide physical caution, while an early loss could reflect rust rather than renewed injury. Observers should watch his movement, recovery between matches, and willingness to defend the full court. Sinner will also need time to rebuild competitive sharpness after missing major events. Expectations should remain realistic during that stage. His talent has not disappeared, and his position among tennis's leading players is not erased by a difficult recovery. The clinic visit represents an attempt to protect those strengths. Turin is not the place where his future was lost. It is where specialists are working to ensure that his next return is built on evidence instead of impatience. The unanswered question is no longer whether Jannik Sinner wants to compete. His ambition has never been in doubt. The real issue is whether his right knee can meet the brutal demands of elite tennis without placing the rest of his season at risk. If you believe Sinner should take all the time he needs before returning, tell us in the comments. Subscribe for the next confirmed update on his recovery, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the decision that will shape the next chapter of his career.